This is Reporter Room with Jessica Della Davies.
Hello, Reporter Room investigators. Come on in, come on in. Whew, we have a lot to talk about in the mysterious disappearance of baby Emmanuel Haro. Today, we're going to talk about Jake's jailhouse interview. I caught something very interesting I want to share with you. We're also going to be talking about the press conference that the DA had yesterday and some of the important takeaways that I found, and I'm curious what you guys saw. Jake Haro is busy claiming to everyone that he's the victim. He's the victim, you guys, and Rebecca's the victim too. They're the victims in all of this, not the baby. And we're going to do a poll today, and we'll start with that. Does anyone really believe that this GoFundMe that Jake Haro is proposing to be used to help post bail, not for himself, oh no, for Rebecca? If you really think, do you believe Jake? Just yes or no, let me know. My name is Jessica Della Davies. I'm an investigative journalist, and my job is to investigate crimes, crime scenes, and potential suspects, and share with you how to do the same thing. If you have not subscribed to Reporter Room, well, please do. I can't get to 60,000 subscribers without your help. The holidays are coming up. Come and join our Reporter Room family. Like, share, leave a comment. And this is really important. Know that everything I'm sharing with you is my opinion. So this video is for adults only. Viewer discretion is advised. So today we're going to be talking about Jake's jailhouse interview, and then we're going to briefly go through the DA press conference. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I'm just going to tell you the takeaways that I had from it, because I caught a couple things. So let's start with Jake's jailhouse interview, and then we'll move on to the next thing. This was, I know a lot of people have talked about this, but I want to talk about this with you guys because I caught a couple things. One thing really jumped out at me. Okay, so despite instructions from his attorney, Jake Haro sat for a jailhouse interview on Wednesday, which was yesterday, where he declared his wife Rebecca was innocent and said that God was on their side because, God always supports people who do things like what they did to children. This is according to my sourcing on this is the Orange County Register. Now, in my opinion, this was Jake trying to keep Rebecca from flipping. I think that he wants to be the first one to make a deal with law enforcement. And his plan is, I'm going to make a deal and hang Rebecca out to dry for all of this. So I'm going to act like I really care about Rebecca, and I'm doing this GoFundMe just to help Rebecca, not for myself. And the 45-minute interview was held over a video hookup with a reporter from the Southern California news group, the OC Register's parent company. Now, while Jake was locked inside the Larry D. Smith Correctional Facility in Banning. Now, on Wednesday, in the interview, Jake admitted that his attorney advised him to avoid all the media, saying that he wanted to talk about Emmanuel's disappearance, but he couldn't. He couldn't do it. And like most narcissistic perpetrators, he was mostly interested in reputation building and showed no concern about baby Emmanuel. I think that's one of the biggest things that jumped out at me. There was like no concern for where the baby is. Where's the baby? That which should be like the most important thing. Instead, he claimed that he was busy reputation building. He claimed that DA Mike Hestron's assertion that Emmanuel was the victim of repeated child A was untrue and spoke at length about this, even though he has a prior felony conviction for willful cruelty to a child stemming from a 2018 arrest when he was married to a different wife. This is Rebecca is wife number 3. And then that wife, he threw her under the bus as well. Now, Jake claims he accidentally dropped the 10-week-old daughter, who was at the time was named Carolina, but is now named Promise, on a sink divider while giving her a bath. But when the girl's mom, Vanessa, rushed her to the hospital later that night, doctors saw far more serious injuries, including a skull fracture, fractured ribs, a brain hemorrhage, and other evidence of other injuries that were healing. So this was not this 10-week-old's first time of having to endure something like this at the hands of Jake. And the common denominator between baby Emmanuel and Promise is Jake Haro. right? Because he had two different wives. He was married to Vanessa when he was, you know, took a plea deal, a sweetheart deal, in my opinion. And I caught something. So once again, we have Jake Haro staying at home while the mother. So this is really interesting. So this is another pattern. Besides the fact that Jake Haro is the common denominator between Promise, who's now 7 years old, she was renamed when she was adopted, and baby Emmanuel, the common denominator is Jake. We also have another common factor that we're seeing, which we have Jake staying at home while the mother goes out to take the heat. So in the case of a Promise, the 10-week-old, the mother went to the hospital. Was Jake there? No. So this is very similar to what we saw also with the mysterious disappearance of baby Emmanuel, who was not at the Big Five sporting goods store, claiming somebody said hola, hit him in the eye, knocked her to the ground, could only see. Jake wasn't there. He sent Rebecca to do it. So in both cases, he sends his wives to clean up for a mess that he created, and then he can absolve himself of responsibility. I mean, let's face it, it worked in the case of Promise, right? That judge gave him 180 days, not weeks, not months, 180 days, of which he served one day in jail, and he was let out on work release, which allowed him to go to work and sleep at home in his own bed. He didn't have to go back to the jail even to sleep. So basically, he got 1 day for destroying the life of Promise. So according to Jake, he wants you to know he wanted to take the 2018 case to trial, but just couldn't afford it. And so he had to make a guilty plea deal in 2023 because the judge told him that no one would believe his side of the story. I believe that nobody was going to believe Jake's side of the story. I believe that. This is the same guy who had law enforcement out on a wild goose chase, right, off of Route 60 the other day, searching around. So I believe he has no credibility. I believe he's a liar. But let's continue on with this interview because, according to Jake, he's the real victim. And how I wish Peter Hyatt was here to take this guy apart. He's not, so I'm going to. So Jake said somehow they magically convinced me to take this damn plea deal. I was sick of court. The judge knows I didn't do it. They just railroaded me. I was the fall guy. They magically convinced me. It was just magic, you guys. Poof. The judge put a spell on him, and his defense attorney, Vincent Hughes, who got him this sweetheart deal, put a spell on him. They all magically just convinced Jake to take the sweetheart deal where he got to serve 1 day in jail. And they railroaded him, and he's just the fall guy, you guys. Nothing to see here, folks, except he's not wondering about his baby. So, of course, Jake is the victim in the rendition of what happened to 10-week-old little Promise, who's now 7 years old. And of course he is. Of course he's the victim in what happened to baby Emmanuel. Of course he is. And during the jailhouse interview, Jake also told the reporter that his wife, this is Rebecca, who's being held at the Robert Presley Detention Center in Riverside, is innocent. He said, quote, "The media is killing her. She's a beautiful woman. She loves her children. I think someone is doing away with Rebecca inch by inch, piece by piece. But I don't think it's the media. I don't think it's us. I mean, looking at her face, I think if anybody's doing anything to her, it's Jake. It's Jake. That doesn't absolve her in any way, but it's Jake." So he said, I think this is all just him to Rebecca to make sure she doesn't flip on him till he can flip on her, right? Because I do believe she is a DV victim. Now that we're finding out that law enforcement started at August the 5th, it makes me wonder if these were at the same time as the incident, the 2 eyes and the mouth bruising, or if this was done after. after, you guys. So the real reason that Jake's giving this interview is because he's hoping that enough money can be raised, around 10% of the bail, so that Rebecca can get out. Now, if anybody donates to this GoFundMe, I can guarantee you dollars to donuts that not a penny of that will go toward Rebecca. All of it will go to Jake, and he will have some reason why he has to get out of jail, right? He has to. Remember, Jake's the one who got Vincent Hughes to represent him up until recently. Now I hear Vincent Hughes doesn't want to represent Jake. Well, that's interesting. Maybe he doesn't want to take the heat for what happened. He got somebody who was absolutely horrific, a sweetheart deal, and the guy turned around and did it again. Nobody's surprised, because if you know anything about the cycle of DV, it doesn't stop. It just goes around and around and around. So, of course, Vincent doesn't want to be associated with Jake now, but he was more than happy to take his money and get him a sweetheart deal in 2023 on the 2018 charge. So he said repeatedly he wasn't Rebecca's lawyer. So here we are, and Jake had a lawyer. We still don't know if Rebecca ever had a lawyer leading up to the time that she was arrested. The only attorney that we ever heard from was Vincent Hughes, who made it clear he was only representing Jake. But now here we are, and Jake has a public defender, but Rebecca didn't have one. She was in court the other day, still no public defender. So it just seems like Jake is first. Jake is first, not just in the minds of Jake and Rebecca, not just from his own point of view, but even the legal system is giving him priority. Let me know if you have a problem with this. So let me know what you think on this poll. Does anyone really believe that if they raise money in a GoFundMe to be used for Rebecca, that Rebecca will, a dime of that will be used to bail out Rebecca? Or do you think this will all go for Jake? Put a 1 in the chat, or a yes if you think that it's going to be used for Rebecca. Put a no or a 2 if you think Jake is just tricking people. He's a liar. He's a scammer. Remember, this is a guy who has multiple scams, right? All these workman comp filings that he does on almost every job he gets. So then Jake does what every statement analyst, and God bless Peter Hyatt, tells us that is a sign of guilt. He invokes God. He said, God is with us. The allegations are horrendous. So of course people are just going to be riled up. No, people are riled up because you guys tried to perpetrate a hoax. You guys went in there and claimed somebody said hola, so you were trying to implicate a minority, and then gave Rebecca the black eye. And I think Rebecca just went to the Big Five sporting goods store, lay down on the ground, waited for somebody to find her, and when nobody found her, she got up, she made a lap around the building and came up, and told her story and Jake, where was he? He wasn't anywhere near that. Not till she told it. Then he arrived after to talk about his diaper, like he really cared. And we watched Jake and Rebecca trying to squeeze out a tear. Just trying to squeeze out a tear for this missing child. So people aren't riled up because the allegations are horrendous. I mean, they are. But people are riled up because Jake did this already to a 10-week-old little baby girl. People are riled up because we can see Rebecca's face. And I'm not excusing Rebecca for perpetrating a hoax, but I don't think her face got this way by itself either. People are riled up because they believe that Jake is the mastermind of the whole thing, but he's the one that gets the public defender first. He's the one that had Vincent Hughes out representing him till Vincent Hughes is like, I don't want anything to do with this. People are riled up because Jake said something to authorities to get them to go out on Sunday. Now, this is what I think happened, and which is why he's, trying to kiss up to Rebecca now. I want to raise this GoFundMe. I want money for this GoFundMe to get her out. She's a good mother. He threw her under the bus. This is what I think, because law enforcement told us during the press release there was not a confession, that Jake didn't confess. So what did he tell them? Well, we saw in the Chris Watts case how this works. Law enforcement throws out a scenario to get you to say something, and they threw out a scenario that, somehow, Rebecca did it and he's just covering for her, and he jumped on that. He took that meat and he bit his teeth into it. And then he took law enforcement out to where he supposedly, uh, you know, or they said it was an accident. They said it was an accident. Jake said, "Oh yeah, he jumped on that like a red meat, like a dog on red meat, and went along with it. It's an accident." He went along with something because the DA says he didn't confess. So now authorities are saying it wasn't a confession. So maybe he was throwing Rebecca under the bus and backing over her, claiming it was an accident. And we will find out at some point what law enforcement was told by Jake to get them to go out to this field. And looks like Jake sent them on another wild goose chase. More lies, you guys. So, per the LA Times, baby Emmanuel may have been done away with more than a week. I just want to put Jake's photo up there too. More than a week before the day he was reported missing, according to Riverside County prosecutors' charging documents. Now, all this lines up with the bruises that we see, in my opinion. We staged these. We were trying to figure out how old these bruises were. And I think, I put them under a couple of different filters. And I do think that these bruises were not fresh. They are a light brown, at least in the mugshot. And when she's on camera, they're also lighter color. So did this happen around the time that Emmanuel disappeared, or was this after to keep her in line? So per the LA Times, baby Emmanuel may have been done away more than a week before the day he was reported missing. Now, the DA told us as early as August the 5th. So that tells me that they either have the baby on video prior to August 5th, or they have an eyewitness that they feel is reliable that tells them they saw baby Emmanuel prior to August 5th. And in the criminal complaints filed against Rebecca and Jake, prosecutors list a potential date as anywhere between August the 5th and August the 14th. That's the day before his mother claims that somebody said hola, and So Jake Haro's public defender is Brian Crosgrove. He declined to comment on the charges, and Rebecca doesn't have a public defender. She'll be represented by a separate attorney due to the conflict of the couple being charged together. But it is interesting that Jake is the first one to get a lawyer. Now, maybe this was because his former attorney, Vincent Hughes, who was only representing Jake, we never heard him. He made very clear he wasn't representing Rebecca. Maybe it's because Vincent Hughes wanted off the case. So they're like, sure, why should you have to stay on this? I think they should have made Vincent Hughes stay on this case. But they were like, sure. And so they gave Jake the public defender. Meanwhile, Rebecca doesn't have a defender yet. So in the Wednesday news conference, DA Hestron shot down a claim circulating on social media that Jake Haro provided a jailhouse confession to another inmate in what's called a Perkins. And he said, this is what happens when you've got all these folks out there online and these keyboard warriors, you get lots of information. And that's just what it's not. You get lots of information about the cases and the investigation, but what you just said did not happen. Okay, but this wasn't a keyboard warrior that reported this. This came from a mainstream media journalist, Brian Enton. And to my knowledge, he has not walked this back. So in my opinion, he is standing by his reporting. He feels confident in his sources. Now, it could be that, he foiled a plan on the part of the district attorney who was trying to, did have somebody in there making nice and trying to get information. It could be that he just, hasn't, been able to source that this is not correct, but he hasn't walked it back. And I think that if he, felt it was wrong, just knowing what a good journalist Brian Enton is, I think he would walk it back. So I think that he's standing by his reporting. So I think that's interesting. And he does have integrity, but this wasn't a keyboard warrior. This was a mainstream media journalist who reported this. But of course, it sounds better if you could blame everything on social media, right? He doesn't want to actually go after News Nation. So during the investigation, Jake and Rebecca supposedly surrendered their phones to investigators and allowed detectives to search their Cabazon home. This was according to Vincent Hughes, because he has so much credibility, in my opinion. But I don't think, Vincent Hughes tells the truth, in my opinion. I think he ruined his credibility, in my opinion. when he got Jake that sweetheart deal and allowed this man to continue hurting children. And I think he bears some of the responsibility along with the judge, because this was against what the prosecution said. And, Vincent Hughes is not poor. He could have represented someone else. Why would you choose to take on the case of somebody who hurt a 10-week-old baby? And why would you choose to take on the case of the one who hurt baby Emmanuel? It wasn't until he got pushback from keyboard warriors that he decided, I don't think I want to represent Jake. Maybe I don't want to have my name too associated with this case. So investigators weren't given these iPhones. They got a warrant for the information. Now, perhaps Rebecca and Jake did give them the passwords, and I'll be interested to see if those cell phones were set back to factory settings or had damaged SIM cards or had lots of deleted text messages and images on them, because we saw this in the Stephen Stearns case, right? He also gave law enforcement his phone and his password, but he had reset that phone back to factory settings twice. We saw this in the Chris Watts case. Nicole Kessinger turned over her cell phone, but she tried to destroy her SIM card. She deleted a bunch of stuff. So, sure, they gave the passwords. Let's see what that really means. Maybe they voluntarily just gave up their cell phones after they deleted everything off of them. But investigators reportedly also confiscated 2 iPads, including one that had not even been taken out of the box. So I don't know how these people are affording all these iPads, 3 Xbox video game consoles. It must be all that workman's comp that Jake is collecting. And Rebecca filed the workman's comp too. So their vehicle was also taken as part of the investigation. And authorities are still searching for baby Emmanuel. We don't know where he is. On Sunday, we saw the search teams in area on 60, the route in the Moreno Valley area, and they were accompanied by Jake Haro. But it looks like this was just another lie, more lies from Jake Haro. He led them on a wild goose chase. So let's talk about this judge from the 10-week-old baby girl back in 2018 that Jake was sentenced for. What is known, and please don't send any negativity to anyone. The judge was a visiting judge from San Bernardino County who was presiding over the case in Riverside County. Despite prosecutors pushing for an actual prison sentence, the judge granted Jake Haro probation and 180 days of work release, of which he served 1 day. So I want to know what connections this judge has to Jake's defense attorney, Vince Hughes. I want to know, do they go to the same country club? Are they friends? Do they golf together? Like, what's going on here? The DA's office stated it objected to this decision at the time, and DA Hestron called the judge's decision a, quote, outrageous error in judgment. So let's look at this press conference. We're not going to watch it, but I'm just going to do the takeaways. Let me pull this up, because this is just egregious, you guys. And I'm really sorry that I didn't go live with this yesterday. I wanted to. I just felt so horrible. I don't know why. This just really does bother me. This case bothers me. It just bothers me. It just does. So let's talk about this press conference and what we learned. So I'm just going to do the takeaways. I'm not going through the whole press conference. So these are my takeaways. I feel like I caught a couple of things. I'm curious if you guys caught something too. So we learned that law enforcement has a tremendous amount of evidence to show the original story of the kidnapping is not true. The DA also confirmed that Rebecca did not confess, that Jake did not confess. He said that there was no Perkins operation, as reported out by Brian Enton, although Brian Enton has not walked this back. So it sounds like he's standing by his story. So maybe this, remember, law enforcement is legally allowed to lie to us. So it could be that they're not telling us the whole truth to protect their investigation. I don't know yet. because I do have a lot of faith in Brian Enton and his reporting. We also saw law enforcement and professional searchers conducting a search for baby Emmanuel with the canine dogs and the cadaver dogs on Sunday. So something brought that about, and it does make me wonder if there was some kind of, sort of confession. I rolled over on him or something like that, but not an actual confession. However their defining confession is. But something made them believe that Jake could lead them to baby Emmanuel. The DA is grateful for all the compassionate people, that's you guys, for Emmanuel and wanting to make sure there's justice for him. And I think you guys are the ones that are driving this case forward. Your compassion, your empathy, your eyes on this case is what is pushing law enforcement to keep searching for baby Emmanuel. The DA mentioned keyboard warriors and stated that a lot of misinformation has been circulated. I don't really think, I do think there are some that will say anything for clicks and views. There's always those, but I think there's a lot of people that are trying to ethically cover this case. I'm one of them. I'm not, I will bring you what I believe, is credibly sourced information. But when there's a vacuum, you will see people trying to fill in the gaps. And if you think I'm doing a credible job reporting on this case, please consider subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up. That lets the YouTube algorithm know that I'm doing a good job on reporting on this. The DA also said that they have a strong indication of where Emmanuel's remains are. So I'm assuming that they are pulling CCTV camera from around the time that they believe Emmanuel disappeared, whether he was thrown in the garbage like Leilani Simon did with baby Quentin, if it was, like Susan Smith let her two toddlers, just push them in the car into the water. So it sounds like they're working hard. They want to find this baby, but I think they can make their case whether they find him or not. But it would just be nice if they could find him, because in the Harmony Montgomery case, and we know Adam was convicted, they didn't need Harmony to do it. It just would have been nice to know that her remains were resting somewhere. The DA also said that there were some levels of cooperation from the suspects. So that's interesting. He said the suspects, plural, and mentioned the fact that Jake had a history of being cruel to children and that they believed that baby Emmanuel, just like Promise, was harmed over a period of time. And a lot of you guys said you thought there was like maybe some shaking going on. You guys, I think you might be right on that. Many of you guys have wondered if he was a victim of shaken baby. And, we talked about this during our last live stream together, and how baby Emmanuel didn't appear to be making milestones like he should have, which made me question the age of when he really did disappear. And we talked about, let me see if I can pull this up. Let me put this up. And we talked about, let me take this down. We talked about how, he's supposed to be 7 or 8 months. We should have photos of him crawling, starting to pull himself up, standing. He wouldn't be walking yet, but he should be pulling himself up. We would see him sitting up. We don't have any pictures of this little one sitting up on his own. And that's a 4 to 6 month milestone. Teething. We don't have any images of him teething. Like, usually when your baby's teething, it's like, oh my God, it's for teeth. Especially with social media today, people love to share stuff like that. We don't have any pictures of him getting his first bite of solid food. That's so cute when they've been nursing and then you give them the solid food and they spit it back out. It's adorable. Most parents love it. They take video of it. They take pictures of it. We don't have any of that, of this baby. So we don't even see him sitting up. So, what was really going on neurologically with Emmanuel, with this baby? And I do want to bring up shaken baby syndrome. So let's do that together now. This case gives me nightmares. It really does. It's just so heartbreaking. So my sourcing on this is the Mayo Clinic. I'm just waiting for it to populate for me. Okay, this might be faster. I will do the Mayo Clinic, but let me do this one. It's just up. Okay. So here are the signs and symptoms of this. And of course, we know he got no treatment. So it is a brain injury that can happen due to shaking the baby. The babies cry frequently. And that, this continuous crying can get on parents' nerves, right? And it could also be a babysitter or somebody like that. But in this case, we know who it was. So since they have very soft brains and sensitive neck muscles, shaking them, with any kind of vigor, uh, can cause permanent brain damage. It can cause permanent brain damage. It can cause the injuries to the delicate neck and brain muscles due to the whiplash of the head bobbing. And remember, their heads are really big in comparison to their bodies, right? So it's a lot of weight for that little neck. Bleeding within the brain of ruptured blood vessels and bruised regions and inflammation can cause functional disruption. Functional disruption, which is maybe why he wasn't making those milestones of sitting up. Bouncing, rocking, bouncing, gentle tosses in the air, accidental falls, and vaccination do not, I repeat, do not cause shaken baby syndrome. However, tossing a baby could, if you threw a baby across the room. So rocking and bouncing and gentle tosses do not cause this. This is like, something a lot more vigorous. Symptoms could include changes in eating patterns. This one really jumped out at me. Let me make sure we're all looking at this. We'll do the Mayo Clinic next. This one really jumped out at me. Droopy eyes. And I'm just wondering if this eye was crossed because, this happened in relation to some type of brain injury. Changes in speech, irritability, lethargy. That means they just look tired and crying due to head pain. And in all of the pictures, you guys have pointed out to me that this baby doesn't look happy. He doesn't look joyful. So properly handling the baby and a timely diagnosis and proper treatment can help prevent permanent disabilities. But I don't think Jake would have allowed that to happen. And I don't think Rebecca would have been willing to step up for this baby. She has not stepped up. She has chosen Jake every single time, which is why she deserves to go to jail. So it's, let me pull up the Mayo Clinic. Let me move myself out of the way here. Okay. Yeah, this is like enough to give you nightmares. So trigger warning. So it can cause serious brain injury that results from the forceful shaking. This can happen to an infant or a toddler. It's also called shaken impact syndrome. So it's a head injury. It's purposefully done. And it can just damage or destroy a child's brain cells. That can lead to permanent brain damage or worse. And we look at what happened to Promise. She has on a trach vent, so she's she's on a trach. She's cannot walk. She is blind. I mean, serious impact of what happened to her. So symptoms can be extreme fussiness or irritability, difficulty staying awake, breathing problems. We're seeing this with Promise, right? Has a trach. Poor eating, vomiting, pale or discolored skin, seizures, paralysis, and even coma. So while sometimes a baby may have bruising on the face, you may not see any signs of physical injury to the child's outer body. Injuries may not be seen. You could have bleeding in the brain and in the eyes. And this brings me back to the crossed eye. Yes, he could just have a crossed eye, but this could also be what a lot of you guys thought it was, which is from the shaking. Spinal cord damage. That's what happened to the 10-week-old little Promise, right? She can't walk. She can't see. She has 3% brain function. Fractures of the ribs, skull, legs, and other bones. She had, fractures. So they also often show symptoms of prior CA. And in mild cases, the children may look like they're okay, but then they'll develop problems later on. But the thing to do is to get help immediately. And if this was the case, Rebecca did nothing except to perpetrate a hoax. So it talks about what the risk factors are. And I believe in this case that we have one big giant risk factor, and that is Jake Haro. He is the common denominator between Promise, the 10-week-old who's now 7 years old, and baby Emmanuel. The common denominator is not the mother, because we have Vanessa and Rebecca. The common denominator is Jake Haro, which is why his whole poor me, everybody's conspiring against me, I'm the real victim here, and GoFundMe begging is just nonsense. So risk factors may increase the risk that parents or caregivers can include having unrealistic expectations of babies, having a baby that cries uncontrollably, having a baby born prematurely or with medical needs, being a young or single parent. Now, these, don't seem like they have really any of these. Stress. But this one jumped out at me. DV. Could also be from medication or alcohol misuse, unstable family situations, depression, and a history. Well, we have this too, don't we? Right? Jake has a history. And I believe, Rebecca's eyes are a sign of DV. And what he did to Promise is a sign of DV. Let me know if you have a different feeling. So I think that is why we have not seen these children making these milestones. But this child making these milestones, for sure not Promise. She didn't make these milestones. She was only 10 weeks when this happened. So, but we don't see him sitting up. That's just a huge red flag. We don't see him standing up. And, he's, depending on what story Rebecca's telling, because she lies, he's 7 or 8 months old. I believe she said 7 months old. Let me know what you guys think, if you have a different thing. I think she said 7 months old because she couldn't keep track of all her lies. She couldn't keep track of all her lies. So let's see where you guys are on the poll. I'm looking for the poll. Let me see. I see some 2s. Do you think that GoFundMe is going for Jake or Rebecca? Care Bear thinks they both need to stay in there. Casey says they have him on video with both parents on August the 10th. Right. So why are they saying August the 5th? I don't know if the August the 10th is the case or not yet. Because I think if they had that, then they would be saying August 10th through the 14th. But that's not what the DA told us yesterday. He said the 5th. The 5th. So that's why I'm going with that date until I hear different. Doesn't mean I'm right and you're wrong. It just means that's what I'm going with right now until we know. When we know more, I'll definitely say more. Care Bear, yeah, I agree. Mary says she is just as guilty. They are both liars and know how to play the system. I hope they are charged. So Moth Money sounds like they think this money's going for Jake. Yeah, I think Jake is GoFunding for himself. That's why he went out there and did that press conference. And also to get sympathy for himself, right? He needed his narcissistic supply. Poor me. I'm the victim here. Poor me. Julie agrees with you. Thank you so much for modding today. This is our head mod. And she's asking, please hit the thumbs up. Yeah, please do. It lets YouTube know that I'm doing a responsible job covering this case. And I am. I am not clickbaiting you guys with nonsense. I am trying to post credibly sourced information. Michael says, please don't time out other people for having a different opinion. This is a G-rated channel. So as long as people are using good language and being polite, it's okay that welcome, Al. Welcome. And thank you so much for subscribing to Reporter Room. Welcome to the family. Lisa said, Jake has said today he had been alone. No confession. Is Jake lonely? Is that, you think that's why he did it? Lady agrees. Do you think that's why he did that press conference, Tom? I think he wanted supply. I'm innocent. Pay attention to me. I mean, his attorney told him not to do it. He did it anyway. And I think he wants money. But it's not for Rebecca. Jake's going to get Jake out of jail, because if we've learned anything about Jake, is that Jake is all about himself, right? He was happy to let Rebecca take the fall. Sure, you go to the Big 5 parking lot by yourself. I'm going to stay here and watch Eli finish his football practice. He let Vanessa take she was baby Carolina at the time. Her name is Promise now, the 10-week-old, to the ER. Sure, you go ahead and take her. I don't want to go. Mm-hmm. That's how much control he feels like he has over these women. Wildflower says, I think they were mad on the Tira with, oh yeah. Okay, so for those of you that are like, well, what is she talking about? So on the Tira, probably did irk them a little bit. I don't know if that was the only thing though. I think, I think the DA might have been upset a little bit with on the Tira because apparently what happened, and I'm like, I love Ahmed. So this is not me creating any shade for Ahmed. I really like Ahmed. But apparently what he did was he shouted "Ola" during the hearing. And this is why you know, we didn't get the results on that. We have a hearing and it's going to be, let me just move this. We're going to have a hearing and it's going to be coming up next week instead of now. Thank you to NJAS for gifting 5 reporter room memberships. Wow, if you got one of those memberships, please make sure you say thank you to NJAS. Thank you to Michael for the $1.99 super sticker. Thank you so much. And welcome Mary Janine Hewley as a brand new Reporter Room channel membership member. Welcome to the Reporter Room family. I'm so glad that you are here with me today. So very, very interesting. And Lynette saying, please give this a thumbs up. It does let YouTube know I'm doing a responsible job covering this for you guys. I am really, really working hard to bring you guys credibly sourced information. So Sky Maiden says, now the thing of it is if he had gone to prison for what he did to the 10-week-old, Emmanuel never would have been born. Well, maybe. It seems like Jake gets to do whatever Jake wants, and this brings me back to what relationship. And this is something I am a dog with a bone on this. I am not letting go of this. I want to know what is the relationship that Vincent Hughes had with the original judge that gave Jake this sweetheart deal, that told Jake, you only have to serve 180 days. You deserve another chance. And you only have to serve one day in jail, and the rest you can be let out on work release. And, you're a good guy. I want to know what the deal was between Vincent Hughes and this judge. Is there anything? Because the DA threw this judge under the bus. He didn't name him and backed over him, made sure to let everybody know that this judge was not from their county. This wasn't one of their judges that did this. This was a judge from a neighboring county. So that tells me that they also think that this is absolutely abhorrent. So what else did we learn during this? And we're going to talk about, did Jake actually confess? What I think happened. So they did say that Jake should have gone to prison. This is what the DA said, that the judge gave him basically a suspended sentence. The DA characterized this as being absolutely egregious. And he thought that, and in my opinion, Jake Haro should have been sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole the first time. And his sentence would have been way longer than 180 days. So what's really, we learned that the prosecutor objected to this sentence, the sweetheart deal. So, again, what judge decided that this was a good idea? And the DA said it was an outrageous error on the judge's part. If that judge had done his job, Emmanuel would be alive today. The DA said they're looking for life in prison without the possibility of parole, and that although this meets the qualifications of a capital punishment case, they're not seeking capital punishment at this time. They didn't say never. They didn't say never. They said they're not seeking capital punishment at this time. So in my opinion, they are not ruling it out. And I think it's going to come down to whether or not they can find Emmanuel and what finding him shows, what they're able to show. If this went on over, a period of some time, and then of what happened to little 10-week-old Promise, who's now 7, I think there's enough that they could get capital punishment, but I think they need a little bit more evidence before they feel comfortable charging him with that. Did Jake confess on when they were out on Sunday on that wild goose chase? That search conducted off 60 in in Mariano Valley. Sorry about that. We learned that, you know, according to the DA, there was no Perkins operation where they recorded a jailhouse confession where somebody went in posing as a prisoner to try to get Jake to confess. The DA is denying this. So, but I haven't seen Brian Enton walk it back yet. So I'm wondering if Brian Enton is standing by his sourcing because he feels confident. Remember, law enforcement is allowed to lie to us to protect their case. So I think somebody as hardcore as Jake probably wouldn't suddenly confess to another inmate. That's my take on it. But he said the Perkins operation simply did not happen. The DA was adamant about that. So we'll see what the next couple of weeks brings on this. The DA emphasized that misinformation and lies were going to harm their investigation. I'm wondering if this was true, and they had somebody in place, and they're worried that that is going to harm their investigation. I'm wondering if they had somebody in place for Rebecca and Jake trying to get information. We also learned, this is just my theory, so speculation alert on that. Just because Brian Enton hasn't walked it back, and I just really think that he would if he thought he made an error. But we'll see. Just because you're a good journalist, and I think he is, I think he's a great journalist, doesn't mean your sources can't sometimes be wrong. That happens too. So the DI emphasized that misinformation and lies were going to harm the case. And they said that they want this case to go to trial. They don't want a plea deal. They want this case to go to trial. So the two biggest takeaways from the DA press conference yesterday was, first, the prosecutor noted that the crime, what happened to baby Emmanuel, his disappearance, he actually disappeared between August 5th and August 14th. The 5th is the most likely day that they can confirm that. So the 4th, probably, that baby Emmanuel was alive. So we don't know who the eyewitness was that would have seen the baby, or if they have some type of security camera footage. The second was the cash bond for $1 million. I don't think they should be allowed to be offered any bond at all. None. Zero. Zilch. I think they should be forced to remain in jail without the possibility of parole. That's what they did in the Richard Allen case. That's what they did in the Brian Kohlberger case. So why do these two get to bond out on $1 million bail? I don't think any bond should be set. Now, the judge has discretion here, and it is my hope and my prayer that this judge gives them no bail, no bond, especially after that wild goose chase that Jake took law enforcement on Sunday. They do not deserve to be out walking free among us. Jake is a danger, and Rebecca, I don't even know what to think about her. I think we're going to learn a lot more about Rebecca once she gets a lawyer. So Rebecca doesn't even have his, and I am just shocked that any kind of bond is potentially going to be requested by the prosecution. I sincerely hope the judge says no, and I sincerely hope that after this wild goose chase on Sunday, that the DA rethinks the bond for Jake. So let me know do you think that Jake should get bail? Say yes in Rebecca, yes, if you think they should get bail, yes, bail. And if you think no, say no bail. So yes, bail, no bail. Just curious what you guys think on this. I say no bail. They shouldn't get any bail at all. Yeah, please don't use all caps in the chat. It causes me problems with the algorithm. So I know you guys, I like to use caps too, but just don't use them in the chat. Incognito says, I respect all of those who have brought us the most information. Thank you. Thank you so much. Kathleen does not want any plea deals. Do you think there should be a bond? Yes. Bond? No. Thank you for modding today, Dabs. Unspoken says, I agree, no bond, especially when innocent children are involved. Yeah, I don't know what more you can do. If Richard Allen had to sit there with no bond, why would you let this guy out? He's done it twice that we know of. So let's see. No bail, no bail, no bail. What do you guys think? No bail? No. Nobody is thinking there should be bail. Oh, don't worry. Ban the bail. No bail. Jamie says there should be no bond. It's not like they need to get out and take care of their children. Yeah, because the other children are in the custody of Child Protective Services, and goodness, they certainly don't deserve to get those kids back. No bail, no bail, no bail, no bail, no bail. All right, so I don't see anybody saying, yeah, we think bail, no bail. Thank you so much, Incognito. Bail is, yeah, right, no bail, exactly. Al says no bail, no bond, says Julie. No bond. Moths says he would flee to Mexico. Yeah, I agree. James says no bond. Delana says, I will try. Again, what's your thought on the CPS report filed by Jake? Filed by Jake or filed on Jake? Because my thought on what filed on Jake is that he should not be, and neither should Rebecca. She's already shown she will not protect her children. So neither one of them should have custody. No, says Jesse. Al says no. Skirt says no. No. Incognito says unless they release them to the general public, they won't get them back to court. Yeah, they could flee. Yeah, where were they? I don't know. It's a great question. D says, I've been here for a while, just lurking. Jody says, thanks for modding today, Jody. Says no bail. James says no bail. Becky said, I found it interesting that his attorney is not representing him. Yeah, I did too. So this is my opinion. I think there's two things going on. One is I don't think that this attorney, Vincent Hughes, he does not want, let me put up Jake here. He does not want to be associated with the deal he got for Promise. Now, I'm not going to let it go. I'm not letting it go. Sorry, Vincent, I'm not letting it go. I am going to bring your name up anytime it's relevant to this case. I am not letting this go. I want to find out how this sweetheart deal came about and what, if any, connections there are between Vincent Hughes and the visiting judge. So yeah, I thought it was interesting too. So I think that's one of the issues. I think Vincent Hughes doesn't want his name associated with the case, but he was willing to take it on initially. He came in, he gaslight Ashley Banfield. He was kind of awful, in my opinion. Allegedly. Don't come for me. But you can. I would love to depose you about your relationship with the judge. But I think the other big thing is that I don't think Jake has the money, which is why he's got this GoFundMe going to get bail so he can work to get a better lawyer. I guarantee you, dollars to donuts, that he does not want a public defender and that this money is not for Rebecca. So I agree with you, Becky. Michael is hiding, counting their riches as usual. Delana says, I thought the police said in the presser Jake filed a CPS report. That he filed one? I didn't hear that. Doesn't mean I'm right and you're wrong. It just means it didn't come across to me that way, that he himself filed it. Thanks for modding today, Dabs and Jazz. Becky says no bond. Adele says no bond. Thanks for modding today, Jody. All right, so thank you for modding today, Kathleen. Becky said they each have $1 million bond. They need to have cash. Well, they'll need to come up with $100,000. So they only need $100,000. So if Jake, I don't know what his house is worth. I don't know if the house is rented or if they own it. But he could get himself out. He must be close because he's trying to. That's why he did the press conference, in my opinion, was to get money going toward that GoFundMe. Catherine says this is not a DP at this time. Right. At this time is the operative word. At this time. Now, this means they need more, right? They need to find Emmanuel, I think, to bring it to make it a capital punishment case. I think they do need to have Emmanuel. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on the attorney. She thinks that attorney Vince Hughes is a coward and embarrassment and is eating the ego too, and the cash is not there for the job. That is her opinion on Vincent Hughes. Lisa said GoFundMe won't allow criminals to have fundraisers. No fundraising was found for either one of them. Well, he talked about it in the article. So somebody's holding a GoFundMe because he says he wants to get Rebecca out. So somebody started one. Rose said everything he does probably tries to figure out the way to turn it into a GoFundMe. Yeah, this is a guy that has multiple workman comps filed. I think 6 that we found, right? Lola said if somebody donates to the GoFundMe, they should be in prison with them. Fidel said a GoFundMe, yeah. Lola said he did file one. That's why they was at his sister's. So he filed one? Oh my goodness. Let me pull that up. Let me see. Let me see if I can find it really quick. On his sister, you say? When I pull that up, I only hear about what he did to. It doesn't mean it's not there. It just means I can't pull it up really quick. It just means it's not handy. Okay, let's continue on together. So I do think it's interesting. Catherine says, yes, the house is owned by a trust, not by Jake. So who owns the house? If it's in a trust, who has their name on the trust? Is it Jake? And that was probably to keep him from having to pay any type of anything toward promise, right? Because when she turns 18 or, and wants to file something on behalf of herself, they would have kept him from being liable for anything. So he put it in a trust, but maybe he can't get it. No cash, no all cash, 1 million is what James is saying. And I do want to say, we're not done, but I just do want to take a moment and thank our producers and Jazz, Sasha Angel, George Brown, Michael, and Christy Valentine. Thank you so much for your kind support. And I also want to say thank you to our channel members. Thank you so much for being a channel member. If you would like to have your name appear just like this in all of my live streams and videos, please hit the join button. Now, subscribing is free, and being a channel member does cost, I think it's a $2.99. And I did get this new applause sound from this particular platform that I'm streaming on has this applause sound. So I guess I should start playing it when people do gifted channel memberships and stuff like that. It would be nice. I see other channels doing that. I do think it's a nice thing to do, to say thank you. And I do want to say thank you to our Super Thanks and Coffee gratitude to Michael, Njaz, Barb, Tammy, and thank you for your gifted channel memberships in Njaz and Njaz. I have her name up there a couple of times because she gifted batches of channel memberships during the last live stream. And thank you to Texas Life Julie for the $5 super sticker. That is so kind of you. Thank you so much. I am very, very grateful for your kind support. So we're going to be doing the Brian Kohlberger live stream after this. I caught something really important. This is like the number one clue that I think we all missed. So we're going to go through that together. And then just some other updates too. They had a hearing today. I'm not going to do the whole hearing, but I'll just give you the outcome of it in a quick overview of kind of what we learned. So I think that would be very, very interesting, definitely. So if you want to follow me over there, I'm going to go over and do that right now. And if you have not subscribed, please do. Please join the Reporter Room family. It's free and it helps me out a lot.